What's up, guys? My name is Chad Perry. I am the media specialist here in the Wright College of Education, and I manage the Digital Learning Resource Center and the Web Checkout Center here on the first floor. Now, I'm going to be making a series of videos just about some new equipment that we've gotten, some older equipment, just some how-to videos, just a little bit here and there, show you guys what it's all about. Maybe if you never used the equipment before, or you just need a little freshen up, just something to wet your brain for a minute. How about that? So, to start off, I am actually shooting with one of our new cameras that we just recently got this semester, our Panasonic GH5. It is a mirrorless 4K camera, and it's specifically meant for videography. Now, it's really nice. I enjoy it, but we also got a Sony A7 III. I'm going to be showing you my personal preferences on the equipment and the settings for photography and videography for this camera. Now, with that being said, we only have two of each. So the quantity is very low, and we're hoping to get some more coming up for maybe next semester. Who knows? But that's the goal, and for right now, we have to do what we got. So let's just jump right into it. Okay, gang, so let's get right into this. The very first thing that I'm going to do with my A7 is reset my settings back to factory, as if it just came out of the box. I'm gonna go right here to this tab, setting reset, initialize, enter, okay. It's gonna take a second. Once it's done, we're gonna select our language, date and time, wherever you're at. That, if you want to mess with it, just gonna pop that up. There we go. All right, the next thing that we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna take a look at our little spin dial here, and we're gonna wanna make sure that we're on manual, because we're gonna want to do everything on manual. All right, so let's make sure you switch that over. Okay, next, we're gonna go through all these tabs, one by one, as fast as possible. But we're gonna give you an overlay, because I know that Sony's system can be a little confusing at first, especially if you've never used one. So, let's get started. We're gonna go over both photography and videography settings, okay? So for the file format, I like to shoot in RAW. For the RAW file type, I go to uncompressed. For JPEG quality, we're going to go to extra fine. We're going to leave the JPEG image size the same. We're going to leave the aspect ratio the same. This is a cool little feature that I will get back to later. And we're going to go over, don't really mess with anything there. Drive mode. Okay, so drive mode, I shoot in single shooting mode. That's just me personally. I don't really mess with burst at all. That could be different if you were a wedding photographer or like a sports photographer or someone who's like trying to capture really sharp, fast movements, or just get a lot of photos at once, But you can also change the shooting mode there from mid to low to high plus to high. But for now, I'm just gonna stick with single shooting. Okay. Yes, okay, so memory here. This is a setting basically showing you how to do your custom settings for both 1 and 2 options up here on the dial right here. Now, I will get back to that later. That's a really cool feature, and there's actually a way you can get a third instead of a second, just only 2. So, I'm gonna go over. Don't really mess with anything there. I usually stay in continuous autofocus, and that's just me, but if you want to go to manual focus, you can. I just like to take advantage of this camera's wonderful focal range. It has 693 focus points, and I just think that's amazing for this type of camera. They did a really well job on that. Basically, you can see it when you're shooting. You'll see a bunch of green dots everywhere. It'll basically just try to keep in track of where you want to focus at. Okay, so let's go down here to focus area. I normally stay in wide. Now that's just me again. Now if you wanted to do zone, you can go right here and it'll mess around with basically wherever you want to go onto the screen or where you want to focus at. So you can go far left, bottom left, middle, top right, and so forth. But from right now, we're going to go back to wide. Okay, let's keep it going. Focus settings, nope. This, nope. All right, next page. No. This right here, responsive. Okay, so it normally comes on 3 as standard, and me personally, I go to 5, responsive. Yeah, I just found it to be responsive. So, anyways, we're gonna go over. Nope. Yeah, I don't really mess with anything on this page. No. Okay, and no. All right, so yes, okay, ISO. Okay, so auto ISO is what it usually stays on. I don't really shoot in ISO auto. However, if I do, I like to give it some brackets, and it normally is at 12,800, and I found that to be a little too high. Now that's just me personally. I like to stay at 10,000 if I'm doing ISO auto, but again, that is just me. Meter mode, nope. Phase party, nope. I don't really mess with anything there. Meter points. No, I don't really mess with that too much. Flash, no, and no. So, white balance. I like to stay on auto for when I do photography, and that's just my personal preference. Others can have differently. However, when I do videography, that's completely different. I like to have a specific Kelvin. It just helps me color grade and post afterwards. But like I said, you do you, boo-boo. Anyways, I like to go down here to picture profile. Now, PP1 is something I stay on when I do photography and videography. It's just like right out of the box, good settings. If you go here again, I like to stay on usually Cinema 3 is my normal. But I have been messing with the new HLG settings, and you can find those in PP10, and I like those personally. If you go down here, you get plenty of options. Now you get HLG, HLG1, HLG2, HLG3. Now, from my understanding, HLG1 is for like low light settings. HLG2 is more of like a broad setting, and then HLG3 is like when you're out like in a really bright area. If you're shooting in like a really desert area, or snow or something of that sort. Now the cool thing is I like to stay on HLG2. It's pretty much an S-Log, similar to S-Log 3, except you don't have to overexpose your footage and then rely on your histogram to see if you have the right exposure. You can just shoot this like normal in HLG2 and just determine if the footage looks good on your screen. And that to me is way better. So anyways, moving on. I like to stay on PP1. Now that's just me personally. It's a good starting point for anyone who's just starting out. Now let's go over. I don't really mess with anything here. Peaking settings, yes, I will stay on white. A lot of people like to go to red, but it's just easier for me to see on white. Now peaking display off, peaking level medium, mid. That's perfectly fine. Here I don't really mess with anything at all, and that about does it for the photography settings. So we're gonna go over next, movies. Okay, so now that we're in movie mode, we're going to make sure by switching right here, and the first thing we want to do is move this little dial all the way over to the little movie symbol right there, and that initiates your videography settings. So we went from manual to our video. Okay, and that allows us to change our settings for our video camera and whatever settings we prefer. Okay, so now that we're in movie mode, first thing we're going to do is go up here to the exposure mode, and we're going to change that to manual. And that's because we want to shoot everything and video wise in manual. Now we're going to go down here to our file formats, and we're going to choose XAVC S4K. Now I'm going to show you guys both my personal preferences for 4K settings and slow-mo settings, and then I'm going to show you guys how to save both of those in your 1 and 2 slots, so that way when you're shooting you can just bap 1 2 4K slow-mo. There you go. Okay. Yes. So then we're going down here to record settings. Since basically I'll be shooting a lot of YouTube videos, I like to stay in 24p 60 megabytes, and that's just because it's just a slower bit rate and it handles better on the computer. It's, you know, just a little easier. Now I do shoot in 24p 100 megabytes. That basically gives, it's just a larger area of data, a lot of larger files, and it depends on your project really. Basically, if I'm shooting a huge project, then you know I go to 24p 100M, and it just gives me more room to edit and color grade and post as well. So there's that. But since for right now we're gonna stick to 24M or 24p 60 megabytes. Okay, so S and Q settings I really don't mess with, because I just like to be in control of my slow-mo. That's just me. I like to manually be just there for it, so I don't really mess with that too much. Now proxy recording, basically it's a cool feature that A7 III has here. You can allocate your high quality footage to a certain SD card. So SD card 2 can have your really high quality stuff, and then your SD card 1 can have proxy footage, and then you can go back and later link both those to, you know, if you want to mess with the proxy first and then link it to your high quality when you're editing in post. Another cool thing about being on proxy recording, if you have it on, you can record, if you're doing like really high def Instagram videos or just smaller features, then you can send these files to your phone, and I just think that's really neat. Or you can send a file to like a preview clip to your a client if you're working for somebody. You know, that's just a really cool feature. But I don't really mess with it because it's just usually hearsay. So anyways, so autofocus drive speed. If I am in 24 frames per second, I'll leave that as normal. Now, if I switch over to slow-mo 120 frames per second, then I like to go to fast, because if I'm in post and I want to convert that back to 24 frames per second, then it'll make sure my autofocus isn't too slow, and you'll see that if you're in normal or slow while you're shooting in slow motion. But for right now, let's just stick on normal, but just wanted to give you that heads up and nod. Okay, so autofocus track sensitivity, I will switch to responsive, again, because it's responsive. Auto slow shut, I don't really mess with that too much. Audio recording, leave that on. Audio record level, okay, so since I really shoot with a Rode video mic, I don't really like it on 26. I find it to be a sweet spot right at around 7 to capture high def quality audio. Now that's just me, and you know, it could be different for anyone else. So, but let's move on. Audio level display, leave that on. Audio out timing, don't really mess with anything here. Marker display, don't mess with that. Nope, not gonna mess with that. Not really gonna mess with anything here. Really cool feature here. Zoom setting. I stay on clear image zoom, and that's because it's a really neat thing they did with the A7 III. It basically allows you to zoom in even if you're using a prime lens, and that's not to say it's a digital zoom, because it's not. Basically what it's doing is it's zooming in on the sensor, and it allows you to zoom in without losing any image quality loss at all. So there's that. I'm gonna go over here to this zebra settings. I like to leave the display on. Display level, these levels, I like to go down to 90. Now that's just me. Other than that, there's not a whole lot I mess with on this screen. And we're gonna go over here. We don't really mess with too much there. All right, so cool. Custom keys. Basically, you can change your photography settings, your videography settings, and your playback settings to whatever you want. We're not gonna really mess with it too much just because it's all personal preference, but it allows you to just go in there and change your buttons to whatever preference you like. Basically, you can change, you know, if you want your audio levels to be C3 or if you want something else to be on C1 and C2, then you're fine. But like I said, other than that, we're gonna leave it the same because that's just preference. Now, we also have our function menu setup, and that basically is our F button right here, FN. If we click that, it gives us a little short menu here, and it allows us to just mess around with settings on the go. Kind of gives you an overview of prioritization, media mode, your ISO, you know, exposure, focus. You can also change this if you like to. However, that's just up to you. So anyways, back to what we're saying. So now that we basically have our photography settings, and then we have our 4K 20 frames per second videography settings right there, I want to show you guys how to do the slow-mo. But before I do that, I want to show you guys how to save the settings I just made for my videography settings, 24 frames per second and 4K. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down, go over, and we're gonna go down here to memory. And I said this earlier, I'll be back to this, and this is why. So it shows you right here. Now, before I do that, I want to double check my settings. So as you can see, I have A7iii S 4K 24 frames per second. I have that in PP1. My shutter speed right here is 1/25 over that, but you want it to be half of what you're shooting at, so we're going to go to 1/50th. And then for my f-stop, I like to bring that down as low as it possibly can. Basically, I'll just chill it at 2.8. Now, auto ISO, I don't use, like I said, too much. We're going to keep this at a 100 and then adjust as we go. We have our autofocus continuous right here. We're shooting in wide. And then we have our auto white balance right here. Like I said, I don't shoot on auto when I'm filming. I will just normally shoot in daylight or right here. That because most of the lights that I use happen to be indoors and happen to be kind of crappy, and they kind of give off a very daylighty vibe, unfortunately. So it just, I found in my time of shooting with this camera here in the area that I am, or if I'm outside, obviously if I'm outside, but daylight is the one that I will normally stick with. Okay, so we're going to go back to menu. We're going to go down, back over to our memory, and then it's on 1. So we're going to click menu again, and it's registered. And then you can go and change that right here by just swapping to 1. And then if I go and click menu again, you can see that my settings are all there. So we're going to show you how to do the slow-mo here. It's pretty simple and quick. We are going to, first off, go back into our video mode right here. Okay. Then we're going to go over to video. We're going to go to file format. We're going to switch that to the XAVC-SHD. And we're going to go down here to the personal setting. And then we're going to go down to 120p by 60 megabytes. Now, again, same thing like I said with the 4K settings. If I want a faster bitrate, or if I'm shooting something bigger, then I'll go to 120, 100M. And that basically is just personal preference, gives you more room to color correct and edit in post. Now, it just really depends on your project. So for right now, we're gonna stick with 120p, 60 megabytes. And then, we're gonna go over here to our drive speed, because like I said before, if you wanna keep it in fast, that way if you slow it down and post or speed it up in post, that way your autofocus isn't like all over the place and it still doesn't look like it's slow. So That is the only things left to change. Then you can see we're in XAVC SHD 120 right there. Okay, and then we're gonna have to switch our shutter speed because it has to be double what our frame rate is. So we're gonna go to 250. Okay, and then like I said, we're gonna leave the ISO the way it is. We can change the ISO at any point, just depending on where you're filming at. F-stop, same thing. All right, so then we're gonna go save that. We're gonna go back over to 1, down, record, memory. Okay, we're gonna go over to 2, and we're gonna click register. So there's that, and we can click on our menu, and then we're going to take this over to go from 1 to 2. If I go to 2, click the menu button, you can see that I am in 120 frames. I am right here with my shutter speed, f-stop there. That is the slow motion speed. Go to 1, click that. There's my 4K settings. So, boom, bap, boom, bap. Okay, go to 4K to slow-mo, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, no problem. All right, so I showed you how to do 1 and 2 for 4K and slow-mo. Now I'm going to show you how to go back to your photography settings. So if you take your dial and go to manual, because we're going to switch this around a little bit because our settings are a little tweaked while we were going through our video settings. And as you can see, we still have our raw. Our white balance is kind of messed up. Our shutter speed is there, so we're going to fix that at a more reasonable number here. 160 sounds about right for me. You can change that. It's just all preference. You obviously can go up from there. But that's a nice starting point. We're going to change white balance to auto white balance. That's just my personal preference. But again, you do you. That looks to be all there is to it. It's the only two things that really were changed too much. So if I were to switch to from manual, let it autofocus here a little bit. Come on, buddy. To 1. You can see my 4K settings, shutter speed, f-stop, ISO, white balance. Go here to 2. Gonna have SHD over here, 250, f-stop, ISO, white balance. And then theoretically, if we go to our manual, that says swap it back to what I just saved it as. So 160, f-stop, ISO, raw, white balance, auto, and there you have it, folks. That is pretty much my personal settings. Alright guys, that's all the time that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed my settings on my A7 III. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more content like that, give me a comment, like, subscribe, stay tuned. If you have any questions about videography, photography, or video editing, cameras, anything in general, let me know. I'll be making a video here in the College of Education Monday through Friday. And if you want to get a hold of me anywhere else, you can follow me right there on my handle. Alright, from me to you, your friendly neighborhood media specialist, Chad Perry.